Good morning on the West Coast, good afternoon on the East Coast, and happy days everywhere in between. Today is Thursday, February 13th, and as I always say, it's a beautiful day to have a webinar. I'm John Yarrington, CEO of the Performance Marketing Institute, a 501c6 not-for-profit trade association dedicated to protecting, promoting, and advancing the direct-to-consumer and performance-driven marketing industry. And on behalf of the entire PDMI family, it's my pleasure to welcome you to yet another episode of the PDMI's seasonal webinar series, brought to you today by the PDMI E-commerce Council. Today, we're joined by two amazing and incredibly talented panelists, including Eileen Fraser of Intelligent Handshake and Brian Young of Verde Payments. Also, to quote the movie Ferris Bueller, today's discussion will be moderated by one righteous dude, Greg Silvano of Buyist.
Nowhere to go but down from there.
No, I know. And together we'll be looking at, is it harder to get a paying customer in today's fragmented and complex performance marketing universe? However, before we get started, please allow me to do a little housekeeping. If you'd like to ask a question, and we encourage you to do so, please use the questions tab located in your control panel. Also, please know you're welcome to ask questions throughout today's conversation, but we'll hold all replies to the end of our discussion. Alrighty, folks, with that said, and all that shared, Greg, take it away, my friend. Take it away.
Thank you very much, JY. All right, so I'm going to start with one word answer from Eileen first, then we'll go to Brian. The name of this episode, this webinar is it harder to get a paying customer, which implies today. Is it harder to get a paying customer today in 2025 than in years prior? One word answer, Eileen. Is it harder to get a paying customer today?
Yes.
All right. Brian, one word answer. Is it harder to get a paying customer? Definitely. All right, so those are two. That shows where we're going with this. All right, so sticking with Brian, what are the shifts that make it harder to get a paying customer today compared to, let's say, 5 years ago, 10 years ago? What are the top categories? Why is it harder?
Sure. So the payments industry is under a lot of always has been under regulatory scrutiny, but it is increasing by the year. There's more and more regulatory compliance that comes out. There's more and more rules by the card brands, Visa, MasterCard, Discover, et cetera. And now we have other third-party entities from the government that are trying to check on things and track cash and make sure that stuff's going in the proper place. So we have the CFPB, and we have a lot of other AML for anti-money laundering scenarios. Everybody's worried about fraud on the credit card side. Everybody just saw Zelle get sued for billions of dollars for not doing their job to protect the consumer. So it's definitely changing. It changes quickly, and it changes annually for sure.
And at the end of the day, those changes are affecting the marketers, the people who are trying to sell their products and get the merchant processing accounts.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a scenario that accounts end up getting by regulatory mandate, shut it off. And it's no notice, shut it off today. And then the marketers have difficulty trying to collect cash for their goods that they've been spending all the money on campaigns to launch to try to get. It's incredibly unfortunate.
Do you feel that's happening more often now than it did in years past?
It definitely does. And not only does it get more often, it seems to be that when somebody finds a few bad actors in a certain particular product segment, right, of the vertical, all of a sudden there's a wide swathing, forget it, just get rid of it. We don't want to deal with it. And then we get the scrutiny. All of a sudden we become the police. It's terrible.
So Eileen, do you feel that on the marketing side of things?
Yes, so much. I think it was a couple years ago, maybe 3 years ago, when MasterCard woke up one day and said, no more free to pay offers. And there were some, I think, in the affiliate world and other parts of the D2C business lines that really lost their businesses because MasterCard would not allow those type of offers to be used for purchasing a product. And then when MasterCard did it, Visa followed through. So these are not even, it's not the FTC, it's not the other regulatory, all of a sudden it's the credit card now that you also have to satisfy. So the marketer sits between, how can I have a compelling offer to get somebody to try my product or experience my product, versus the credit card companies and the regulatory that wants to make it so restrictive for somebody to put their toe in the water that it becomes very, very hard. So that free to pay, if you're in the business of a supplement or something like that, that free to pay was, well, try it, see if you like it, and then if you like it, stay. Well, that totally went away. So now, we have, again, depending on how expensive your product line is, we have installment payments, we have other kinds of things we do to help it be easy for a consumer to buy the product. But when the credit card companies can totally take away an offer type, it's really tough.
Yeah. Okay. So talking about compliance, right? So whether the compliance or new or evolving compliance requirements, either could be government agency, right? So CFPB, CFPB, did I get that right? Anti-money laundering, or Visa, MasterCard themselves. For a direct response marketer today, is it harder to get approved? And once you do get approved, or does it take longer to get approved than it did in years past? And if so, and then after that, so that's part one of the question. And part two is, once you're approved, is it harder to keep processing payments, right? Is it to me, 5-10 years ago, I would tell people, just go up to auth.net, create an account, and you're up and running in a day. Those days gone? I'll start with Brian on that one.
Yeah, I mean, for this type of business that we're in the ecosystem that we have, they really are not only definitely gone, but if you're already an existing good customer with a good track record, it's still days because of the risk and the underwriting and the website compliance and the terms and service. Negative option is a real bad thing. Getting back to some of MasterCard's, no free offer. Negative option where people have to do something to cancel. We saw Click to Cancel come out, that order last year, right? It becomes very, very difficult. And not only that, from the standpoint of the regulatory KYC and KYB, to know your customer and know the business that you're transacting with, we have to do a lot of things because we are becoming more and more regulated like a bank. So when somebody opens a merchant account, it's like opening a checking account at a bank. You have to have the articles of incorporation. You have to make sure the EIN's registered. You have a good Secretary of State, good standing. You have to have all of these things that come over with the package, and then it's evaluated, right? So you have to assemble a lot of these things in order to be able to have us be the stewards of these rules. Again, as a processor, we don't write the rules. We have to adhere to them and make sure that we do the right things, right? But this increasing number of rules that comes on ends up requiring us to have more and more documentation to open an account. It requires more and more scrutiny based on the business type, right? And what you have. Again, the terms of service have to be reviewed, the refund policy on the website, all of those things. But that also, in chaos, there's opportunity, right? So one of the positive things is we have other companies that are coming through to help us with some tools to automate some of that stuff to help us be good providers for direct marketers. So we have some of the companies like Yodely, which if you've ever gone to a place where you have to verify your checking account, instead of putting in your accounting, your routing number and account, you put in your credentials for PNC or Chase or Citi. You put in, be young at whatever and my password, and then it says authenticate checking account X. We click it, done. So that eliminates us needed avoided check. We know that account's owned by that person. We can check the social security number or the EIN against that. So, the good thing is there are a lot of innovative people that are supporting this ecosystem that allow us to become, reduce the friction when it comes to try to be able to run the business and support our mutual customers in this ecosystem that are trying to do marketing.
But even with the reduced friction, expect to take longer.
For sure.
Simple. Pretty simple. All right. So what's the cause of this? I mean, is it chargebacks? I mean, what do you think is kind of the driving factor of these things? Has there been an increase in chargebacks?
So there has been an increase in chargebacks and the increase in friendly fraud, right? Friendly fraud is the scenario where you sign up for something for whatever, you get the product as delivered, as committed to as the consumer. You don't like the product. You don't want to call 1-800-merchant to cancel the service or cancel the subscription. And you pick up the phone, you call your bank, or you go online, you say, I don't know what this charge is, wink, wink. and they initiate a chargeback, right? So there are rates and there are regulations with the card brand rules for thresholds that people have to sit within when it comes to chargebacks. And unfortunately, from the standpoint of more scrutiny, in April this year, Visa is modifying their terms, and we fully expect to see not only chargebacks, but also refund ratio limits. So even if you're refunding them, that potentially in the future, that's going to be an issue.
Really? Why would they do that?
It is. Because if you have a lot of refunds, then you're a bad person, supposedly, even though you're doing the right thing to protect the consumer, giving them their money back. It's not great. However, with every bad thing, we try to find some good things in it. There is a program called Compelling Evidence by Visa that allows, if somebody is a subscriber for a service for continuity service for a year or something like that, if they do call to try to initiate a friendly fraud chargeback, many of the processors that focus on this type of activity, like us, we have integrations into the card networks. So when, Greg, you call your bank and say, I don't know what this charge is, wink, wink, your credit card issuer will ping us real time and say, guys, what do you have? If we can reply with transactions that are older than 120 days, but younger than 365 days with 3 pieces of compelling evidence, the card issuer finally will tell you, Greg, sorry, you need to grow up. You're going to have to conduct, you're conducting business with this vendor. You're going to have to call and leave us out of your fight. So there is some give and take, but it still is making it more and more complicated because not all processors have that type of functionality. Or we have to build that functionality to support our customers.
Right. And is that only for Visa?
MasterCard has a similar product, and American Express plans to have one by the end of the year.
Okay. So Eileen, going to chargeback specifically, for marketers, anything that they can do to structure, their offers to kind of reduce disputes, things like that? I mean, are there any more, like, I'm coming at this because I see more and more like recurring revenue and auto ship and things like that. I mean, are there any tactics that a marketer can do, knowing that that's that recurring revenue model is probably where a lot of them want to be, to reduce chargebacks?
Absolutely. And in fact, most of my clients succeed in blocking most of the chargebacks that are attempted. And it's because we're very compliant upfront, following all the FDA guidelines in terms of taking that order. So if you take the order correctly and you disclose all the terms and it's opted in and your return policy is very clear, all of those things are visible, easy to find, not hidden on the website or on the call script, very clear, then you're going to be able to hold your revenue and push back on those chargebacks. Because as you know, the threshold is 1%. 1% of orders in above that, now you're in risky territory. So I would say that if you take the stance that you want a good order from the beginning, as opposed to trying to be, I'll use the word sleazy, hidden. If you disclose, then you'll be okay. And I know your earlier question was, is it harder? I'd like to add the word expensive. And the reason I use the word expensive is because your credit card fees, the merchant fees, will be higher. Again, if you have risky orders, if you have high chargebacks, you're going to pay for that. So not only do you have the issue of, okay, you've got a chargeback now hitting your account, but your fees can go up in ratio to how many difficult customers you have transacted with. So it's really important to keep your chargeback ratios low because it ties to your merchant fees for every transaction you have.
So is your take that a marketer, if you are paying attention and ethical and you care, it's not an insurmountable problem?
It's not insurmountable, but you do have to work it. And it gets harder. Like Brian mentioned, the FTC changes last year with the click to cancel. Yep. You don't have it's not as easy today as it was a year ago. But nevertheless, if you follow the rules, and people will still buy. You know, I always think of it like this. I don't ever want my client to have to wear orange. You know, I don't want to see him in jail. I do have to say, Mozilla was one of my prior clients in the Countrywide days. So, and he did wear orange, not for what we did with him. So I got to put
It's not as compelling to say, I don't want my clients to ever wear orange again. Yeah, it doesn't have the same ring.
Yeah, I know that doesn't work.
I don't want another of my clients to wear orange.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Now I'm really digging myself into a hole, but the reality is,
I'm an expert because I learned how to keep them out of orange.
There you go. Yeah.
there you go. Well, and you always have to take the stance that, are you doing the right thing by the customer and in my case, by the client? Because at the end of the day, you have to be able to stand up and say, this is why I'm innocent. Mm-hmm. And I think, you know, the same thing applies to claims, right? On an offer, you have to have enough defense behind you to say, this is why I am clean. And I always have that perspective that I want to make sure that I'm never putting, I'm not risking any client's business.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Okay, so Eileen, you had actually shown something about what Intelligent Handshake does, and this isn't, you know, meant to be a product pitch, but it's it's meaningful and it's super relevant to the conversation because it's about risk scoring and how it affects things further down the line, right, including chargebacks. And I don't know, JY, if you have that you can show, or if Eileen.
I'll kind of give you a little background while JY pulls it up, but it's we're always in the business of trying to help solve clients' problems. And in this particular case, a client all of a sudden realized that they were in the 3% chargeback territory. And you know, what happens is the credit card companies give you a very limited time to fix the problem and get back below 1%. So it's all hands on deck because, as you know, if you lose your merchant banks, or your merchant banks plural, you lose the ability to take an order. If you can't take an order, you're out of business. So very serious when that happens. So in this case, the client had asked us to fix the chargeback issue. And we took the attitude, well, why don't we just fix all the negatives in a P&L? Because when we're so focused on generating revenue at the top of the P&L, we're always looking for the lowest media cost per order. And isn't that great? We got more orders, we got more revenue. But then if you look at the bottom of the P&L and you go, oh my gosh, we had cancels, returns, chargebacks, and all the negatives hit. So we just said, let's just take the approach that we're going to deal with all the negatives at one time, not just the chargebacks, but all the negatives. So with Intelligent Handshake, we developed a risk ping at the beginning of a entry into a website. And we can do this on Buyist or other platforms, or when a call enters into a telemarketer. And the trigger for us is this a risky buyer or a good buyer? If it pings on risky, because I'm in the beginning of the conversation, the opportunity, we would load a web landing page, which can be quite different from a regular normal buyer. And we can change the offer. We can change how the offer is expressed. We can limit things like continuity, because you don't want a risky buyer in a continuity, but you'll take some transaction up front. And similarly on the phone, we'll do the same thing with the scripting. So basically, we're the only ones that are in the beginning of a transaction such that we can mitigate, we can take some revenue from a risky buyer, but we mitigate that risk. So this is an example of what happened. So what we found was that as we identified the risky buyer and I changed what kinds of things we were offering, or in the upsell stream, either way, the hero product or the upsell stream, we had fewer cancels. And these cancels are cancel before ship. So think of this as remorse. We had fewer people going, oh my gosh, what did I just do? So as we reduce the cancels, that increased the shipments of orders taken by 23%. And as we increase shipping, miraculously, we actually cut returns. So normally when you increase shipping, the ratio of returns raises too. Well, in this case, it went down. The returns went down. Therefore, we had more revenue per order taken, which now matches so much more nicely to the media cost per order. And the true goal that we were after was cutting chargebacks 74%. So we were going after chargebacks, but we took everything else with us.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, it's such a huge number.
And again, you know, it's miraculous when you realize if you're a call center, why would you take a risky call first over somebody who's high dollar sitting behind it? You might actually delay the answer of that call. So there are many different ways, because you have the intelligence up front, that we can adjust either on a website or in a call center. So thank you, JY. You can put that down now. But
Love it.
the I love the what we're doing in the front is trying to take good revenue that doesn't go away, but then we also need all the tools that Brian brings to, you know, help us in the back end. So it's really amazing to see that we can affect both sides of it, so that you have good merchant bank relationships and you have good orders. I want to be able to take money from a risky buyer. I just want it not to be risky.
No, I love it. Thank you. All right, so I'm gonna go back to Brian for a second. So we talked about that there's increased scrutiny, increased regulations, and chargebacks were a part of that. Were affiliate networks, Brian, involved in any of this? Like, if they used to do round robin mids and complicated offer setups, probably a lot of chargebacks. Has that? But on the flip side, affiliate networks are important for direct response marketers. It can be important for a campaign. So has that changed at all?
You know, it has changed, and honestly, from the standpoint of risk and underwriting, one of the technical things it's actually looked at is how much organic traffic the website actually has versus referral traffic. And you know, the problem with a lot of the people that are driving the traffic, it's coming from affiliates, in trying to get that. So it ends up difficult for us to make sure that we have people put in a good light with what they're doing, which gets back to that timing of getting a merchant account, right? So somebody may come to us, I've got this account, they're not processing a lot, I've got these, this great new idea and things they're going to put up. And when we start to go through the underwriting piece of it, specifically for this vertical, we, all the things that we look at, we're very consultative, just like Eileen's piece of it with trying to make sure the things are set up, structured properly so that you have a good outcome for everybody, the consumer and the merchant. We do the same thing with trying to look at the website and make sure that stuff isn't in 4-point font, and that there is a return policy that's actually up there and whatnot. We've even had some customers that have run into chargeback issues because, for example, one of them had too many things at the same price point. And when the cardholder got the statement, they thought they were billed twice for something. So they initiated a chargeback for one of them.
Oh, interesting.
I said, raise the price, lower it. I don't care. Let's try it. And sure enough, chargebacks went down.
Really?
So it's a consultative effort that we do to keep them going.
I actually want to dive back more into that, not that particular thing, but the consultative part of it. So, and this is nothing we discussed in a prep call, I'm now just curious. Is there more of a relationship between you and the merchant? Like, are you guiding and helping them? Because I always had the picture that it's, you get an email, you get a letter, and merchant unhappy, you're done. And it's just like, call an 800
It depends on the partner you pick. Our organization, we are very consultative. Even with other people that might have a tool like Eileen's to be able to add to the to help keep it going, because our goal is to keep good, honest people that are doing their job running, right? That's the goal, and keep them running in a fashion that keeps them within the rules and guidelines, because good people don't want to break the rules. I mean, at the end of the day, they want to do this. Fraudsters and thieves, they break rules all the time. They don't care about stuff like that.
They don't care.
But it is very consultative, and it definitely is an ecosystem of people. It takes a village. It really does.
Focusing, keeping on the affiliate network side of things, are there anything new that a marketer would need to do today that they might not have had to do 10 years ago to either, risk controls, contract terms, or things like that for an affiliate marketer? Is it all kind of the same rules, but maybe the stakes are higher because you can get shut down, or could very well get shut down quicker than you would 10 years ago?
Yeah, I think the bar to success is definitely becoming elevated, with reducing of things like we had talked about, with refund ratios potentially coming out as a rule in April with Visa. We'll stay tuned to that because it's very close to our heart, right, in our business. So I think that the bar is getting higher for people to be able to demonstrate that they're following the rules, trying to be good stewards of the networks because the card brands are very worried about what they have. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you win all the chargebacks. A chargeback's a chargeback. You could win all of them, and if you're running 3, 4, 5%, you're getting shut down. Like it's inevitable. It doesn't matter if you win them and you're right. I mean, Amex came out with something about 10 years ago for chargebacks. If there's a chargeback under $50, you lose, period. You could have video camera in a restaurant, somebody eating the food and loving it and signing a thing that this is the best food ever. And they go home and they initiate a chargeback because it was $42, you lose. Like
Really?
it's very unfortunate, some of the rules. And again, Amex historically always has been very, yeah, it is.
You know, it's really interesting.
So Amex historically has been very pro cardholder because they always had the high annual fees, right? And very negative towards the merchants. But at the end of the day, it's a matter of understanding, you know, how do we, you know, help the good people that need and want the help and focus on those types of things. And it's a business choice on how you run your business, right? Like you said, some people, they just get a letter. They get the letter after they've been shut down. They think their stuff's broken. That's why they're not processing. You know, there's no notice, click, bang, done, sorry. You know, and there's other worse economics that we can get into later about that. But yeah, I mean, it's not fun to be in that bad boy seat, and you want to make sure that you have good people around you to support you.
Fair. Eileen, I don't know, do you have any experience with affiliates? You may not. Just anything to add on that one?
Yeah, one of the early tests we did when we went to web was testing with affiliates, and this was at the time free to pay was going away, but it was a moment where the affiliate lost 95% of all customers between day 1 of the order and day 14. And the reason that was important was on day 14, there was a $95 charge. So when you have a very low cost of entry and then a big hit on day 14 that is disclosed in mice type, it wasn't my favorite campaign because all the legalese was very hard to read, but we succeeded in changing that ratio from only having 5% charge the $95 to having, I think it was like 35% charging the $95. So totally changed their business and kept them in business, actually. So the affiliate world is a little bit different from the DRTV kind of space a lot of us live in, but nevertheless, they have their place. And anyway, you got to learn their rules. Their rules are a little bit different.
And you got to monitor them.
Yeah.
That's key. Okay. So, but it's not all doom and gloom here, right? So is it harder to get a paying customer? The answer is yes from Eileen. It is definitely from Brian. But there've been a couple things that have come out in the past few years that make it a little more frictionless, probably. Apple Pay, right? That's Brian. Good thing. Your audio is out.
Sorry. You know, I do think it's a great thing.
Okay.
You know, Apple and Google with their stored wallets for credit cards, for being able to pick up a device and tap to pay in a retail environment, has been adapted quite a bit into the card not present world, right? Sort of the online e-commerce. And really, that's one of the things that we saw that have implemented and seen a very big increase in some of our cardholder acceptance, as well as the ability to help our customers grow. Reducing the friction at time of sale is always going to be, on the surface, easier, right? If it's a bad customer, it's not. But on the surface, if you have good customers that you've targeted and given the right program to and presented the offer, having them be able to use Google or Apple Pay or one of those mechanisms to be able to pay their bill doesn't reduce the fraud per se, but it does reduce the friction because they don't think, oh, well, my wallet's upstairs, I'll go buy it tomorrow. Right. So now you've potentially churned that customer versus capturing that offer. So one of the surveys that Visa did last fall when we were at their tech symposium, they asked everybody who memorizes all 16 digits of your credit card, including the card 3-digit code on the back and whatnot, and 4 people raised their hand out of 150. How many people know your Apple ID or your Google ID? And everybody, raised their hand, right? Because at time of checkout, the right interface with the e-commerce system And the payment processor, you can actually have Visa, MasterCard, Google Pay, Apple Pay. So if you pick one of those Google Pay or Apple Pays and you put in your credentials, it pulls up your wallet showing the cards that you have stored, the same ones that you have on your phone when you do tap to pay, right? And or your watch today, right? You can pay with your watch. It pulls up those and they go, oh yeah, my Visa ending in 1234, click, and now they send us the transaction. We work with Apple to get the credit card number.
And the shipping address and the billing address. So it makes it even more frictionless.
Yeah, it does. It does.
So, and then the other side of that too is that as a user, I love Apple Pay, use it all the time. It's not another account. It's just a stored credit card, right? It's not like a PayPal Express where it's another account that has to be connected to either a credit card or a debit card or a credit or a bank account. So I think their solution on a technology level is different and helpful, right? It literally is there
and it's,
to reduce friction.
And it's one for all of yours, right? So
yeah,
if it's your FSA card to buy prescriptions at Walgreens or on Amazon Pharmacy, it's your your work travel card if you're booking a business trip, hypothetically, it's your whatever card that you choose to use. It pulls up the menu of cards that you have in your wallet. With only being able to memorize one item. And there's some other technology that's coming out with some of the biometric things that's going to help we could say hi to the maid behind me. Sorry, I'm in the hotel. There's some other things coming out with the biometric device fingerprint to help the checkout process as well, to be able to help authenticate even further than just pulling up your wallet. Terms of service, stuff like that. That's coming in the future for everybody.
Love it. So, Eileen, you and I have been in the direct response space for a few years. And forever it was multi-pay, right? So 3 payments of $39.95, things like that. And the merchant had to float that debt, right? So it was, I'm going to ship out my product for 1/3 or 1/4 or 1/5 of my price, and then I'll do the charges every 3 months, every 30 days for the rest of it, and pray that credit card sticks around. And you would have to factor that into your campaign, the bad debt side of things. And then lo and behold, out comes buy now, pay later, right? So all these Bread, Affirm, Klarna, Split It, Sezzle, these buy now, pay later platforms. And I mean, they reduce, so we're an e-commerce platform. I have never seen a faster jump to a new technology ever, right? So even now, most don't use Google Pay. I think PayPal Express was around for 15 years before we had our first client ask to do PayPal Express, right? They're not exactly the cutting edge here, but buy now, pay later solved a genuine problem for marketers. It was, how can I offer multiple payments but not be on hook for the debt, right? So if you use a buy now, pay later platform as a marketer, you get all your money minus a fee, just as if it were a credit card charge. That's a big deal in direct response, right?
Yeah, it is a big deal. And if I can step back for a second to the old days, the epiphany for me when I was in automotive was when leasing came out. And when you would advertise a car, call it, $50,000 for this car, Gregory, it's a great car, hot, you're going to look great in it. You as a consumer cannot translate $50,000 into can I buy it? So what we found out with automotive and leasing, where you said in the spot, this car is $500 a month. Now, as a consumer, I can go, well, I can afford that, or I can't. I can make that judgment because there's a level of fear of the customer. They don't want to go in and say, hey, I want to buy this car, and then admit that they can't afford it. So what happened in the automotive world, then, if I'll translate that to DR in a second, but basically it was, you cannot look at a $50,000 car and decide, am I good to go? You can look at a payment and decide if you're good to go. So I went online today, it's President's Weekend, and let's say I wanted to buy a mattress today. So the mattress is $4,000, but there's the line that says payments of, $200 for 36 months or whatever it is. The point being, now I can say, well, geez, I can make that $200 payment. Thing I'm going to buy. So what the installment pay does is it allows that buyer to validate, yes, I like it and I can afford it. And then they'll move forward. So now the risk that you talked about with all the marketers, when we used to do installment payments, it was horrible because you'd have a 3-pay of which you'd be happy to get 2 payments. And the third one was basically lost. So with Klarna and Affirm and those other companies that will buy the debt or buy the risk, that's easier for the marketer because they have an assured amount of dollars coming to them, even though they have to lose something. They have to pay, they have to lose part of that revenue to do it, but it's at least it's revenue you can count on, which is so much better, because the fraudsters got really crazy when you'd buy it for the first payment and then they'd never make any other payment and they were just making a ton of money off of you. So we've come a long way in this multi-pay world, and I like to say that the more pay types you can show, the easier it is for that buyer to come to the conclusion, I can buy this. And the easier make it, like your example with Apple Pay, it's a simple click. So all of this work is trying to position that mattress. By the way, I can get it by Monday, I noticed. If I bought it on the website, I could have it delivered by Monday. But the point being, we're reducing the friction to make a decision to buy by having multiple pay types. We're reducing the decision to, can I afford it, by showing installment pay or those kinds of features.
Great, thank you. All right, so 2025, Brian, back to you. 2025, put on your wizard hat here. What's coming up for either regulatory from Visa, MasterCard, American Express, CFPB, which, by the way, they're shut
Consumer
down.
Finance and Protection Bureau, and they're not really shut down.
Like literally, like fired a bunch of people yesterday. Like it's part of the.
They did. I mean, at the end of the day, what's going on in DC is historic. Whether you view it as good or bad, it's still historic, right? You're right. They did have a lot of terminations. They've got a lot of things going on, and I think that while the effort in DC to cut the government waste, et cetera, there still are some things that the current administration is very, very pro on, and one of them is funding of terrorism. So AML isn't just anti-money laundering anymore. It's AML/CFT for counteracting the funding for terrorism, which is here to stay. I mean, it not only is it here to stay, Trump is in the administration is very, very hot on it.
So what's the net impact on a marketer? What's that mean to them?
Well, that gets back to the whole underwriting of the risk. Like, do I really know who that marketer is? Are they really selling whatever widget or service that they're selling? Even if it's recurring, are they really selling that?
How do you know? How do you know as the processor?
We secret shop. Oh yeah, we secret shop. We go and buy stuff on our own and ship stuff to our houses and do all of those things. We also from a partnership aspect, we actually partner with many of the fulfillment houses. So the fulfillment houses have issues with their, this is the ecosystem, right? It's the marketer, the fulfillment house, the pick, pack, ship, all that type of stuff. Some of them we have very tight integrations with from the standpoint of coding for shipping notifications, because again, a good marketer is not going to object to me getting the shipping data from the fulfillment house. A bad one who's putting bags of weed in a box because they sold a stuffed animal, like they're not going to want me to do that. So a lot of the things that we have to do is and even with the fulfillment houses, we do site visits. We go out there and see how much inventory they have and that type of stuff. So it is becoming more and more, but that also does help the good people become elevated from their brand, from all the things that are going on. And the good people can do way better. That helps us prove and relax some of the things that they need. So if somebody does have a bad campaign that gets their chargebacks through the roof about something, we had somebody that sold stuff online a couple of years ago and inadvertently bought sizes that got shipped for they were Chinese sizes, so they were much smaller. Even though you ordered a 2X, it would fit my 20-year-old daughter. It was a mistake. It happened, but they were a good person, good company. It was documentable. We look, this is going to happen. So we, did let the card brands know in advance, right? This is coming. We're trying to do all the refunds we can. Don't be alarmed at all these. We're doing the right things, and like I said, all those things in place lets the good people rise to the top of it, and hopefully keep the bad ones suppressed, and let them go somewhere else to try to steal from people, because it's not just stealing from the marketer. It's stealing from us. It's stealing from the vendors. It's stealing from everybody. It's terrible.
If you were going to predict 2 changes or changes, I don't know the right word, 2025, what would they be? Anything that you think is guaranteed to be coming down the pike?
I think Visa's rules, and again, it's pretty imminent in a couple of weeks here, that they're going to change the rules on the fraud program and their high risk programs for people that fall into different tiers. They're going to more than likely start looking at the refund ratios and start to implement that in 2025. So from a card brand standpoint, that's going to be the case. And on the flip side, there's going to be more and more recurring audit, so to speak, on the accounts that are open. Oh. So you may have had an account for 10 years. And now every year you're going to get a call from us saying, how's it going? Just want to make sure all your stuff's still good. Because beneficial ownership is one of the things that's on a merchant application. And that doesn't mean you have any equity in the company. It means you're a control prong, right? So the people that's actually running the company, we have to know who they are. At a high level, it's one of the things since 2018 that we've had to have. But just because we got that data starting in 2018 at account opening, the feeling right now, and we just concluded one of our internal audits for operations as well as our PCI audit, and one of the things that they had discussed with us about things that we needed to do or start getting ready to do, right, to tip us off a little bit in 2025 is periodic reviews. So we're gonna have to periodically review the accounts that are running fine.
No specific marketer type, just across the board?
Across the board.
Interesting. All right. Okay, so don't be freaked out when you get that call, basically.
No, we're actually getting ready to design a customer care team to reach out to do that, because it's just going to be one of those things, and in the ecosystem to sit where we sit from a payment processor, that's our business. So we're going to have to adapt and be part of it.
Is it something the marketer cannot ignore? Mark is red. Move on. Like, is this going to be something that just has to be done?
Well.
Eventually,
everybody's going to have to do it. We may be a little bit, more out in front because we want to do the right things and support our customers properly so that they don't get shut down. Because look, if Visa calls us and says shut Greg's account down, it's off. Like when Daddy says so, there's no question. I'm not going to lose my acquiring license because of something, right? So it's a matter of being a good steward of the business that we're in and the services we offer.
Love it. Eileen, I'm going to ask you the same question, then I just have one more question after that. So Eileen, the question I'd asked was if you're going to predict 2025, something, right, relating to, is it harder or easier to get a paying customer in today? Can you predict anything, or do you have any predictions for 2025, whether it's, FTC click to cancel type stuff, or, is it Visa, MasterCard, or buy now, pay later, or just the offer types that people are playing around with? Any food for thought on that? It's okay to have none.
Well, I'm hopeful that the FTC kind of backs off of their hard stance. And I don't know if the click to cancel would be ever reversed or if it's memorialized now forever. But hopefully some of those FTC harsh stances can be backed off. But we also have to worry about the consumer side, because the consumer these days, I looked up the age 45 to 60-year-old, what's their average credit card balance right now? It's almost $9,000.
Yeah.
So when you're out there getting somebody to like your product and buy today, we're at a moment in time where the credit card rates are, not the rates, but the credit card levels are quite high. And I'm hopeful that throughout the rest of this year that those credit card balances start to come down, because as they come down, it's easier to sell a new thing, right? It's logical. So we're in a moment right now where the credit card balances are high. The media cost doesn't ever get any cheaper, right? So we have to kind of feather our way, hopefully, into a space later in the year where it might be a little more lucrative.
Perfect. I'm actually going to end on that one. I just noticed the time. Oh, Brian, go ahead.
One quick thing when it comes to balances. Congress is actually attacking Visa and MasterCard directly, although they're kind of barking up the wrong tree a little bit. But nonetheless, I think it's good from a consumer standpoint that they're attacking them for these high rates. The average interest rate's like 27%. It's nonsensical, and puts somebody in a position where they can't dig themselves out.
Yeah.
While I say they're barking up the wrong tree, Visa and MasterCard don't set that. The card issuers do, right? The banks, so it's Chase and the people, the brand on the front side of the credit card, right? That's the card issuer. So I think that, once Congress and everybody starts to figure out where to point their arrows to try to support the consumers, that will help reduce some of that maximum debt, just like they did with the banks with overdraft fees, right? Many banks don't charge overdraft fees anymore because you just keep digging the hole deeper and deeper and deeper. So if we can see those rates get cut in half even, I think that helps some of those people get out of that $9,000 average debt, which allows them to free up more cash to be able to spend more in the ecosystem instead of just going to the bank's pocket.
Is that something that's led by CFPB, or is that Congress in general?
No, that's Congress directly.
Congress. Okay.
Yeah, there's a subcommittee that's working on that right now.
Interesting. JY, I think we're good. I wanted to leave time in case there were any questions.
We've got some questions. Thanks for asking. Let me get it started here with, we didn't talk much about AI in this conversation, but an AI question came up. How is AI going to affect and or change the way marketers process and consumers make transactions moving forward?
Well, I'll jump into that for a second. We use AI in all of our analytics on the intelligent handshake side, so it's built into everything that we do. So as we analyze what segment you're in, we're using AI.
Brian, any tools on your side people have?
Yeah, we do. I mean, from the standpoint of looking at bad transaction, there are some historical things that we can see inside of our ecosystem as a processor for people that are more proponent to having chargebacks, because they're identified pretty easily, whether it's the address and or whatnot. So there's some tools that are helping with us kind of do some better prediction if that transaction is going to be a bad one. Some of our merchants are utilizing forms of that today in AI to determine if they should just not allow the offer at all. But that's on the back end after they go through the presentation of the offer. But I think in general, everybody could say that AI is going to be great and do a lot of things, and I think it will. I think that AI will allow us to make better educated decisions to run our businesses more properly, and stay in the lane, so to speak.
And I'm sure there'll be AI in the chatbot that you will have to call if you have a merchant problem and you're trying to get
we do have an AI chatbot. Very few people use it. They want to talk to somebody, which is fine.
I get it. It's funny.
Good feedback. Thank you. I appreciate it, guys. We just kind of talked about this at the end of our conversation, but I'm going to throw this question out there anyways. Revolving debt is at an all-time high. Interest rates are equally high. What are brands or merchants doing to kind of help encourage the flow of transactions to keep moving forward? I guess what they're asking is, consumers are kind of coming tight on credit limits. Are there other things people can do to keep the cash register ringing?
I mean, multi-pay, pay reasonable prices. I mean, that's always a fundamental part of marketing, right? An offer that resonates with the customer. I think it becomes a more important during an economy that might be troubling. But you know what? I've been saying it's a troubling economy for years, and it still hasn't come crashing down. So maybe it'll continue. Just I say limping along. But yeah, I don't know. It seems this weird disconnect with people still spending. I don't know.
Maybe we need to offer a free dozen eggs.
Oh Jesus! Yeah.
Every transaction.
Can you afford to do that?
No, I don't think so.
How do you find the chicken?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, well, yeah. Anyway, it's sorry, just being silly. It's all about it's about the offer, right? It's about the offer to get the
and it's always been about the offer. right? I think, and the offer just needs to be in line with the reality of the economy today. Yeah, I don't know. And I think if there's a compelling offer that to put in front of the right person at the right time, you're still going to get a yes.
Agreed. Thank you guys. Much appreciated. Greg, you kind of asked this question towards the end, but I'm going to re-ask it because it's always an interesting one. What's the biggest unknown challenge or opportunity this year? Like, what's like right in front of our faces, but we're not thinking about?
I'll grease the skid a little here. There's that old adage that it's easier to get money from an existing customer than to find a new customer. And I think all of the things that were talked about here reinforce that. If you're taking care of your existing customers, if you're, doing a continuity offer, then, if you have customer service and the offer was clear up front, and you look at Eileen's chart and, flip all those bars the other way, if you're treating customers like that, I think it's extraordinarily difficult to get away with that now. I don't know. That's just kind of my overall take. Do the right things. It's getting harder to not do the right things. I think maybe that's it.
There's sort of no wiggle room anymore, right?
Yeah, or at least the breathing down your neck. Brian,
Well, that gets back to when something goes wrong, good people will speak up to get the people around you to support you, including the banks or the brands. We had a lot of associations like PDMI and still do as customers of ours that had to cancel a lot of events. Like, there's going to be a zillion chargebacks for the badges, like when COVID happened. Like, it's just going to happen. And they're like, don't worry about it. Like, for those, let us know in advance. We let them know in advance, and there was no breathing down the neck. There was no fines. There was no. So it's about professionalism and doing it right, all around.
Well, let me throw something else in. It's, in a way, you almost have to do the right thing because social media is so prevalent that if a customer is unhappy, boy, that's a lot of negative press out there. So even when you're in the right, you have to you really kind of solve those problems as quickly as you can, because there's no hiding.
Yeah. Yep. I agree with that.
Again, good feedback. Good feedback. Thank you, guys. Let's end this with one more question. This is kind of like you're leaving with your best advice here. What is like one or two tips for brands that you can offer out there in terms of helping them effectively keep operating their business in today's complicated environment that they kind of run their companies in? Is there one or two tips you can just parting words you can leave with the audience?
Rewatch this webinar.
With the audio on. I have one actually, and it's interesting because it'll sound like I'm pandering to Brian here, but it's genuinely not. Before I spoke with Brian, I swear I assumed all merchant processors were nameless, faceless bots running on Unix servers, and good luck trying to get a hold of them or doing anything. The thought of a relationship with a merchant processor was completely alien to me, and I appreciate now the role that they have. And I look back at some Buyist clients and, trying to get a merchant account, they're like, privacy policy is not updated. I'm like, come on, we've worked together 50 times. There's going to be a privacy policy, but now I understand. I know where that's coming from. So the whole concept of a relationship with a merchant processor, especially knowing that Visa, MasterCard, American Express, CFPB, AML are getting bigger, right? Or they're more complicated, and there's more stuff to know, and there are changes coming. It's not quite sign up online, click a bunch of buttons and walk away and think that it's going to be great forever.
Well, it's worse because the ones that do that tend to be in a scenario where they will shut your account down very fast, and then they will hold your funding money for up to 180 days.
I've heard of that. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So that's real. That's scary.
Eileen, any parting thoughts?
I work with the experts in the merchant bank side of it because, there's always something to learn, and there is a human being between you and the processor. So that's really good advice, Gregory and Brian, that, have that human face wherever you can do it. highest average order value of, obviously. You know, it's all about making the numbers work, and sometimes it's not just the hero product price, but it's what you're doing in the upsell stream. So all of those are very critical.
Thank you, Eileen. Phenomenal session. Eileen, Brian, Greg, what a great conversation today. Very much appreciated. Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed today's conversation as much as I did. Before we close out, I'd like to take a moment to invite you to join us for the PDMI's next webinar, the PDMI Take 20, hosted Wednesday, February 19th at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. Also, I'd like to remind you that PDMI Spring Conference, PDMI East, is scheduled for April 7th through 9 in Miami at the Eden Rock Hotel. Conference attendees will save $300 per night on their Eden Rock Hotel rooms by booking through the PDMI group link. To get your badge to attend the conference and to get your hotel room, simply visit thepdmi.com. That's thepdmi.com. Thanks again, everyone, for a great afternoon and spending the hour with us. Make it a great day, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you all.